Welcome, everybody, to Random Encounter, the RPGFan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards.
With dead emotions.
Oh, God, he already cut me off. All right, we're still going. Yes, I have no soul. I have no emotion. So we got some people back on the show joining us to take part in a little conversation about soundtracks in the middle segment. So why don't I introduce everybody? First, we have our regular contributor. That's you.
That would be me.
That's you, Steven.
Steven, Taylor on the boards, freshly back from Japan. I was so dazed when he mentioned me as a regular. I was like, oh, yes, that is me.
Yes. And you seem to cry an awful lot, and your little outburst was about the fact that I didn't cry when Eris bit the big one. But we do have somebody on the show. We have somebody on the show who did cry, apparently.
I'm not even going to answer that.
Introduce yourself, jackass.
My name is the guy who cried, also known as Derek, Embryon on the boards, and Robert Steinman has no soul.
It's true. It is actually true. I have a bunch of ex-girlfriends that will confirm that fact. And then we have the man who hired me.
Hey, everyone. This is Patrick Gann, Ramza on the boards.
Yep, and he's still apologizing for hiring me.
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. And then back by popular demand, the man who loves everything.
Yeah, it's Dennis, a.k.a. turn-based dude on the boards.
All right.
And also cries easily.
God, why do you guys cry? Have you guys ever... Okay, I will admit, one game that I got a little emotional at was the ending to Metal Gear Solid 4. That
was pretty awesome.
That got me... But it was mostly the music. The music is what got...
They did such a great job with that.
Yeah, that was... Okay, that was all right.
I need to finish that.
No, you really don't, because the game kind of peaks around Act 2. So, what are we going to do today? We're going to talk about games that we've been playing. We're going to have our soundtrack discussion, and then a brief mention of news. So, who wants to start off with what you've been playing?
I can do that.
Cool. All right, Steven, go for it.
I mentioned last time I was playing the Back to the Future game. I finished it, and it was awesome. The puzzles are not difficult in any way. It's more or less just kind of a guided tour through it. It's still fun, though. And it's the guy who voices Marty, I think I said it last time, is completely awesome. He's dead on. The guy, they got Christopher Lloyd for Doc. The story is pretty fun, and I think I can see where they're going with it. And they have a lot of fun stuff with it because in this one you go to the 20s and you meet Doc Brown as a kid. And the adult Doc is telling you how to get the attention of the young Doc, and they have a lot of fun with that. So they came out really well. What's that?
Do they set it up where you're going to go to another time period in the next episode? I kind of figured that every episode was going to be its own time period.
Yeah, I think so. I think every episode will be its own time period, and then I think maybe one or two of them might have you going to multiple time periods.
Oh, cool. Can we maybe go see the T-Rex that was in the Universal Studios ride? That would be kind of...
That would be awesome. I think I'm getting the vibe that they're trying to hit stuff that wasn't hit in the movies, but still sort of keep it in line with them, because there's still a scene where Marty wakes up and he's like, oh, where am I? There's a lot of the scenes that repeat in all the movies that repeat in this that I think they're going to keep going for in the future episodes.
I'd like to see Marty go back in time to like Renaissance Italy and get stabbed by Ezio. I think that would be kind of cool. Like,
that would be some nice cross promotion there.
Ah, man, that would be cool. What else have you been playing, Steven?
Actually, I picked up this game totally just random on Steam. It popped up. It's called Winter Voices. It's an indie game, and it has the coolest graphics. They're like all hand drawn. It's very, very wordy. It's kind of really subdued, and you play as you create a female character, and it opens up, and basically it sets up that you hate your father. But they don't really say why, and he's on his deathbed, and you wake up, and these like shadows appear around him and start like accusing you of these terrible things, and it's kind of like for combat, it's sort of like Fallout, but with more objectives. The original Fallout, not the new one, and it's really cool, and I definitely think people should check it out because it's an indie game, so help them out. There's a free demo, and it has like a really the art is really lavish and lush, but everything else is really minimalist. It's really cool.
All right, excellent. Okay, so who wants to take the torch now? Maybe Pat or Dennis want to get in here?
I'll do it.
All right, go for
it. I've recently finished Rune Factory 3 for the DS. Best game of the bunch and very lively cast. But the bachelorettes in this game were weird. For those who didn't know, in each Harvest Moon and Rune Factory game, there are women you can marry, and I decided to go the quirky route and marry the woman who speaks in opposites, highlighted in red text for your convenience.
So,
Yeah,
so wait,
seriously.
she speaks like Yoda?
No,
She says she hates you and she means she loves you.
Yeah, with the smiles and the voice
Okay.
clips.
So it's like backwards day on a college campus. Oh, that's
Yeah, but
awesome.
She does it on everything. For example, when she was explaining her love to me, she said it like this. Again, highlighted in red text. I loved you so much that I wish that you get thrown into the wilderness and the monsters have their way with you. Tee hee hee.
Oh, God. I'm
very romantic.
You guys have no idea how much I'm struggling to keep this PG right now.
I'm having the same problem. I'm sitting here going, I could think of a number of awesome situations that could be really funny.
Oh yeah, where the police.
I think I've seen that anime actually.
And like I said, there are a bunch of other weird girls, including one really lazy one, which I was thinking as the second choice, where one of the quests involve her getting her sick. It's like, I don't want to work. Please help me get sick. Seriously.
God. Okay. All right.
So it's a real life simulator, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to move on.
Yeah.
Moving on.
I'm about ready to pop a blood vessel over here. Too many jokes.
Okay, moving on. I've been playing some of the Xbox and the arcade games. Both I'm covering, even though I've been very busy lately. One of them is Aphelion 2, the direct sequel to Aphelion in the RPG I covered back in August. Standard, sci-fi RPG, turn-based battles, etc. Very nice 2D graphics that strays away from the retro trend. And it's been solid. I'll get into more details when the review eventually pops up soon. And then there's Cthulhu Saves the World, aka with the makers of Breath of Death. Still fun game. And been really enjoying myself so far with it, even though I didn't play much of it. Interesting premise where you probably wonder, why does Cthulhu want to save the world, right?
Isn't it just so he can destroy it?
No, basically his powers got sealed away, and in order to get his powers back, he has to be a true savior of the world. Ironic.
I like this. I like this.
I want to give that guy props. That guy rocks.
I need to read some Lovecraft. I know my brother-in-law gave me like all the books, and I haven't read any of them, and I really need to.
And Cthulhu gets a groupie right from the get-go.
Yes. I like this. This is good.
And true to his lore, he has the power of insanity and smites it upon his enemies where they go crazy in random encounters. With sprite changes and all that good stuff. And last thing to note is the presentation was interesting. It basically rips off the way Phantasy 4 does it during its cutscenes with all the different panels.
Oh, man.
Phantasy Star 4, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Phantasy Star 4 type of presentation is present.
Oh, that's just amazing.
And last thing is basically I picked up 999 a few days ago, got 2 endings. It's pretty awesome. Moving on.
And you're depressed.
Yes.
You got the same endings that I did. I got ending 6 and 5 as well. And those completely ruined my day.
Yeah.
Are those like the easiest ones to get, or?
I think they're the most natural to get. Like,
yeah.
The decisions that you make, the things that you're going to want to do, play directly into those endings. So,
I got you.
Yeah,
you'll see when you get to it eventually.
Yeah. So is that it for you, Dennis?
Yep.
All right, Patrick, what have you been playing, sir?
I'm going to try and keep this short, but there's a lot I do want to talk about. I still play Final Fantasy XI, and the reason I'm still playing it is primarily because it's better than it's ever been. The battle-based Dissidia content, and I think, Derek, have you been keeping up on this?
Yeah, I kind of sort of made myself quit again last month, but I'm up to cap right now on my Puppet Master. I know, LOL Pup. Yeah, I'm keeping up on it.
I made myself quit.
I have LOL Drag.
Yeah, the Dissidia content, it's finished now. There were 3 parts to it, and then if you complete or beat some of the major enemies in all 9 zones from the 3 parts, there's a special super end boss against Shinryu, which is a dragon that's part of the Final Fantasy lore. And after this podcast, I'm going to go fight him for the first time. And the
Stay
they've
alive.
done what they've done with the game is really incredible. And really, all they did was they dropped their guard. They've been so conservative and so slow to let people, upgrade and become more powerful, and they sort of just opened the floodgates and let people become overpowered.
I actually had a question about that. I know they raised the level cap, and I always wanted to play it more, but I know you get a lot of pretty powerful abilities at I think 40 or 30, and I guess now that they raised the level cap, you can get those as your sub job. Did that break the balance of the game?
Well, not entirely. There are some really obvious advantages. You'll remember that sub job was, or excuse me, the Dark Knight sub job was like a specialty sub job just so you could have access to the spell Stun, because Dark Knight got it at 37. Well, Black Mage gets it at 45. So anyone who's sub Black Mage traditionally now also has access to Stun. So there are little things like that. The sub job cap hasn't changed a lot. They've made a couple exceptions where they said if you have this job as a sub job, you do not have access to the following, even though you ought to because of its level. There was some ninja abilities that they added. It was one of those you put on one or the other ability, and one enhances accuracy and one enhances evasion or something. And there's a couple of those where they made exceptions and said if you have this on as a sub job, you don't have access to it.
If you have red mage as a sub job, do you get refresh?
Yes. Yeah, everyone can sub red mage and refresh and convert.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, red mage has become a very popular sub job for that reason. Yeah. But no, the overpowering comes primarily from within Dissidia, not just the option to spend a little bit of crore and then up all of your 7 base stats, which the more Abyssite you collect, eventually that's plus 50 to all 7 stats. So every time I go in, I get that. But then there's also the Atma, which is, it's like you turn them on or off, and you can have up to 3 Atma on at a time after you've done enough stuff in the Abyssea world. And Atma gives you all sorts of weird bonuses. You get them by defeating notorious monsters and also triggering a special effect. You get these red exclamation marks to appear on them by using the right weapon skill on them. And these Atmas have really insane effects. Like one single Atma gives you dexterity plus 50, critical hit rate up 30%, and critical hit damage up 30%. That's one Atma, and you can have 3 Atma. I have one Atma that gives me intelligence plus 50 and refresh 10 MP per tick. That's one Atma, and you can have 3 on, and the combinations are almost endless. So they're only applicable within Abyssea, but because you get so overpowered, in turn they've made very overpowered enemies. And what it's led to is more interesting strategies, and really strategies that have allowed for a more diverse grouping of jobs. You can spam it with pets. You can do like a Beastmaster and Summoner run, or you can go all melee, or you can have a combo. You can do big alliance level mage burns. And again, I'm just talking about notorious monsters, but you can also grind out experience points, and then there's the whole the third artifact armor line. There's just so much good stuff going on in the game, and it's so much more fun than it's ever been. Anyone who used to play, I'd recommend reactivating your account. That's how I feel about it.
I need to get into that. I'm level 18.
Yeah, I just retired currently.
Way.
Meanwhile, at FF14,
I just remember Final Fantasy 11 because that I thought about getting the hard drive for the PlayStation 2 and going through all the rigmarole to play that game, and that was way back when I was in high school. It's amazing that it made it that long. I don't think anybody was expecting that. That's very well done on Square's part.
Even 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I expected it to be dead by now, and certainly the player base is lower, but it is so much more fun than it's ever been. And I just hope they can keep up that level of quality.
It's a no. So
that was way too long. So let me very shortly go through some of the other stuff I've been playing. I got an advanced copy of Prinny 2: Dawn of Operation Panties, dude. That's
what?
The title says it all.
Yeah, it's Nipponichi. Keep up.
Yeah, that's a.
Sorry.
It's a 2D action platformer for PSP. It's the sequel to the first Prinny game, and obviously Prinny is that demon penguin creature that explodes whenever it's thrown, and has all sorts of weird problems. Dude. And, I think a lot of people have suffered from, if you really got into the Disgaea series and played all of those strategy RPGs and all the other Netherworld-related ones like Makai Kingdom or La Pucelle or Phantom Brave, it becomes a little too much, I think. Like, when I finished Disgaea 3, I was like, yes, this was a good game, but I can't play any more Disgaea for another few years. For them to jump from strategy RPG to action platformer was a really unconventional move, and it's a really good one. The first game was great. It was just a little too hard, and I like platformers that are hard. I like the old Treasure games, which, I look to as the pinnacle of really good, like, beat-em-up platformers, 2D, and Prinny gets close to that level. There's a lot of really interesting concepts going on, and it'll be out by the time this podcast is up in America, and it's already out in Europe. So that's cool. RPG-wise, I put 110 hours into Persona 3 Portable, beat the game on the male and female scenarios, and the only thing I'm going to say about it is a quick note about crying. We talked about crying for Eris's death and how crying makes you a wuss.
Yep, you're all wussies. You're all wussies. You need to get rid of your souls. Trust me, you'll be better off for it.
If you finish the epilogue, or if you finish maxing out the social link for the Sun scenario, which is the dying young man Akinari, the epilogue scene for that, where you meet his mom and she talks to you about him dying and the preciousness of life and holding on to him. I cried when I first saw that, and then when I beat the game the second time with the other gendered character, it was the same social link there. So when I got to it again, I actually stopped at that point, and then when my wife had a moment, I read that bit of dialogue to her, and then she started crying. So for all the silliness...
Secret lover. What?
For all the silliness that goes on in the Shin Megami Tensei series... there's a lot of weird, dark humor and demonic stuff and, trippy stuff like fake shooting yourself with a gun that's actually an evoker to summon things.
Breasts with mouths, yeah.
Yeah, breasts with mouths and penis demons.
Penile with mouths?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
For all of those things, it's amazing to see something really true and heartfelt and something that people, regardless of cultural or religious persuasions, can all look at it and say, yeah, that's true, that's good. It's great to see that in an RPG, and that made me really happy. Another game that I've been playing, is Dissidia Final Fantasy, which I know is old. One reason I wanted to play it is because the sequel's coming out soon, and I know we have people here on the podcast who are very upset about some of the recent things that have been revealed about that game because the developers seem to think that we're all really stupid 13-year-old horn dogs. And certainly there are plenty of those that will buy this game. But anyway, I'm still playing the first game, and I'd like to thank Dennis, who's on here, for the gift. He sent it to me as a gift.
Welcome.
So thank you, Den.
You owe me something. Kidding.
Awkward?
That is awkward. I'll try and get you something then, Den.
Oh, God.
It's coming up. Wink, wink.
Hey.
Good to know. I have finished... You get to do each of the 10 characters, and I think I've finished 6 of the 10. I'm going in order of difficulty, so that means I haven't done Terra, or the Warrior of Light from the first game, or Bart's, or the Onion Knight from the third game. Onion Kid.
I hate the Warrior of Light.
Yeah, Warrior of Light.
He's such a boring character.
Can't
I know, right?
Can't you play as Jecht? Because I find myself associating more and more with Jecht as I get older, because he makes fun of Titus crying all the time.
You can't play as him.
Not surprising.
Do they have story modes for the 10 villains?
They do not. You could just play as them in arcade mode. And
Right, yeah. I saw you could
everything
unlock them in arcade mode. I really hope the sequel has story paths for the villains, too. It seems like an appropriate thing to do, especially for villains who are not clearly on board with the villainous thing, like Golbez for FF4 or Jack for FF10.
Yeah, Jack's not evil. He was turned evil, for God's sake.
And he really did it for a pretty good reason. Like, he didn't do it because he's a jerk or anything. He did it because he's trying to support his buddy.
Right.
Speaking of 10, sorry, just to say quickly, like, I've got in the mood to play that recently. Unfortunately, my disc got scratched.
Oh. I was actually watching. Does anybody here? This is kind of a plug for another website. I don't know if we should do
Spoonie Experiment.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that, man.
They've done a great job covering that game. They've done a great job covering that game.
The Spoonie Experiment. Type in Spoonie Experiment online. It's a great. What's the guy's name? Noah Antweiler.
Yeah. He just does like game reviews. I mean, similar concept to things like Angry Video Game Nerd, but he clearly has his own style.
Yeah, and he's way funnier than AVGN.
No one does it like him. He's really funny.
I find him way funnier than AVGN, and you get more of an actual review than you get out of Yahtzee. I mean, Yahtzee's doing it for funny on Zero Punk, but we should try to get Noah on the show. That would actually be really cool.
I think it's a good idea, and I bet he'd
invite me.
We will make that so. We will make it.
I'll have to get familiar with that because it sounds pretty good.
Oh, it's great.
I've seen this stuff.
Just Spoonie Experiment, and his Final Fantasy VIII review is something like all the parts added together. It's like 2.5 hours, and it is fantastic. It is.
Yeah, he does these mega reviews.
Yeah.
I should also plug. Do you guys know? What is it? Red Letter Media.
Oh yeah.
Guys,
Plinkett reviews.
Plinkett does the old Star Trek and Star Wars the original Star Wars trilogy.
That made my Christmas morning.
That dude is just bonkers funny.
I was so excited to find the end of the saga of the woman in his basement. That was delightful.
And it's funny because his reviews are actually as long as the movies themselves.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get us off track.
Yeah, and that's all I've been playing. So moving forward.
All right. So Derek, what do you got for us?
All right. I'll start out by saying I defend myself for crying when Eris died because A, I was 10. And real men cry when fictional characters they care about die.
Damn straight.
How did you care about her? She was okay. She was a manipulative, freaking.
No, she wasn't. She was very sweet.
Dude,
No.
She was pure and sweet.
She was passive aggressive, moody, and obnoxious.
Wait, Rob.
That sounds like Tifa.
You don't understand.
I was about to say. That
You don't
sounds like
understand how
Tifa.
I
Zoom the
feel.
camera into her breasts.
Wait. Just a sec. You don't understand how we feel, Rob. We have souls unlike a certain someone.
That's true.
Tell him, Dennis.
I'm glad I don't.
Experiment reviewed Sewer Shark.
Yes, he did.
Sorry, continue.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Anyhow.
Go ahead.
So,
Go ahead, Derek.
What I've mostly been playing is 999, 9 kittens, 9 cans of Pringles, 9 doors, 9 hours, 9 gas changes, 9 oil filters, whatever.
I still can't get the name right. And I
Yeah.
reviewed the damn game, and I still can't get the name right. So what do you think?
I don't know what a gas change is.
So what do you
Anyway.
think? Are you liking it?
I beat the hell out of it. I played it
I beat it like a
obsessively.
redheaded stepchild. That's what I
Heck
did.
yeah, I did. I played it for like 2 days, almost nonstop. I got I think I got 2 endings in one night, and then I got the other 3 or 4 in the same day. It was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And I've barely played any of Ever 17, which I know Dennis. Is it Dennis? Or no, it's Andrew and
Well, I played
somebody
a bit
else.
of it, but not much. It's Andrew and Neil who beat it.
Andrew and Neil, yeah. They love that game, and I've only played a bit of it. I got one bad ending of that game, but 999 reminded me of that a lot. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of like the whole aquatic mystery, weirdness, freaky, supernatural
You're trapped
stuff.
somewhere. Right?
I think I said this last time, but I have had Ever 17 installed for like a year, and every time I try to play it, I think I play it for like 15 minutes, and I get so unbelievably bored that I'm like, ugh, because I feel like I'm really missing like the awesome part of it. It's like playing Xenogears for something other than the story.
Yeah, with that game, I think I had to make myself play it for a while, but I got really into it after a while. And then I got a new computer and lost all my data. But anyway.
I have such a hard time playing something, and they say, okay, you have to beat this 50 times before you get to see the awesome part. And I'm like, why do I have to do that? Why can't I see the awesome part after I finish it once?
Yeah. How come I have to play a game for 20 hours before it gets good? God. That's just horrible. That's stupid.
Wait, what does that
design.
remind us of?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think we should talk about it.
Must be Uncharted.
Surely. Anyway, so after beating 999's ass, which I really enjoyed, I finally got around to actually buying Reccetear. Played the demo.
Capitalism, ho!
Capitalism ho!
I need to play that. I should have picked it up when it was on Steam sale. It was
It
on
is
Steam
also
sale for like
excellent.
$2, and I didn't pick it up.
I blanked out.
Yeah.
What are we talking about again?
Reccetear.
Reccetear. Okay, yeah, I bought that too.
Yeah, I should have picked it up.
I got it on sale, which I feel kind of bad for because that developer is awesome, and I want to support them more, but I was like, $5, hook it up.
Sweet.
But anyway, so I've been playing that, and it gives me sort of a, maybe it's just me, but it gives me like a Monster Rancher-esque sense of accomplishment, or maybe a Harvest Moon, every time you can improve something with your shop. And I'm pretty sure that
good call.
even if you screw up and you can't make a payment, you can restart with your merchant level, I believe. So it's like you're always gaining something, and it's not like you're horribly set back to nothing.
And I also
it isn't Demon Souls punishment.
Oh, yeah. Demon Souls punishment is great. It makes it so you have no soul. You don't cry at anything anymore.
Actually, it makes you like you have a demon soul.
Yeah, so I've been enjoying that, and even though I can't make myself use any characters but the starting one because I'm too afraid to spend time leveling them up. Yeah. But it's really fun, and I like the aesthetic. I like the art. It's a little cliche anime, but I can't fault the translators. That's the developer's choice.
I got to give those translators credit, too. They did an awesome job localizing.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
The like, A, they're localizing stuff that nobody would ever get to play, and B, they did an awesome job. And it's so difficult to do that, and I think it really shows that they, totally give a crap about what they're doing.
They didn't half-ass it.
Let's get Andrew Dice on the podcast, too.
Is that me? Is that me? I don't consider myself to be Andrew Dice. That's a little harsh.
No, get him on the... No, not Andrew Clay Dice. Like Andrew
You
Dice...
mean Andrew Dice Clay?
He's the head of the company. Yeah,
Andrew Dice is the head of
I honestly thought you were making fun. I'm sorry. All right, so Derek, do you have anything else to tell us, or yeah?
And besides Reccetear, I've been playing a little bit of Phantasy Star Portable too. I didn't bother playing the first one, but I got it for Dennis for Christmas, and then I got it for myself so I could play with him.
Yeah, and you turned into a monster. I got to level 64 in like 5 days.
What?
Yep.
Yeah, he's a beast. I don't know what to say about that. I'm like level 10. Chill out.
Take care of business.
But I played a little bit of that.
Yeah, did you guys get the Colonel, KFC Colonel?
No, that's the Infinity version.
Oh.
We are not blessed with Colonel Sanders in our version.
Yet, hopefully.
Yeah, so just been playing that a little bit. The story mode is a little, cliche, but I can't expect too much from that. I played with Dennis once online, and Dennis was like, "Get out of here, scrub." So I haven't played with him since then. And besides that, that's all I've been playing. Mostly 999.
Well, good. All right, so I guess I think the only thing I've been playing is The Witcher. I played a little bit more Miles Edgeworth. I'm on the last case, and I'm trying to finish that up before Ghost Trick comes out next week. And I know the last case is really, really long, and I'm having a hard time getting back into it. But I'll finish it probably either tonight or tomorrow. I'll just go on like a big spree. As for The Witcher, I'm on Chapter 3, so I'm a little bit over the halfway mark. And I really, really like The Witcher, but we talked about it in the pre-show warm-up. I cannot stand the combat. Like, I find the combat to be so boring and numb and just stupid. I'm doing the same thing over and over again that it's getting to me. I think the best part of The Witcher is when I'm doing the actual role playing, when I'm walking around, when I'm interacting with quests, when I'm solving things, when I'm making decisions that impact the world. That's the sort of stuff that I really, really enjoy. But when I'm, in these combat scenarios, and I can definitely hear whoever's typing right now, so make sure you mute your mic. And on a side note, the Jets just won, and I hate my life. So,
you gonna cry?
Yeah, why don't you cry about it?
No, I'm not gonna. No, I'm not gonna cry.
Cry about it.
I'm a Steelers fan. There's no reason to cry.
Oh, there's definitely a reason to cry if you're a Steelers. Never mind.
Well,
Let's not get
sports.
into that.
How is there a way to cry as a Steelers fan? We have the most Super Bowls out of any other team in the NFL.
And you have the most insane. All right, we're getting way off topic.
That's
Stop it.
That's the Eagles
Stop
fans. Stop it. But the combat is just really, really boring, and I knew that it was kind of a low point for the game going in, but I didn't realize how boring it was going to get, and it's one of those things where I'm hoping for the sequel. It seems like, at least in the gameplay trailers and everything, that they've really focused on it, and I think that'll be good. I would almost just love it if the combat was just Demon Souls. Just that Demon Souls level of interactivity between the environment and the characters and whatnot. Because this combat in The Witcher is really, really dull, and I'm having a hard time fighting through it. So who else here has played The Witcher? Does anybody disagree with me?
I did.
I played The Witcher way back in the day, before the director's cut even came out, or the enhanced edition.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a blast with it. But yeah, I like the combat at first, but it kind of runs like crap. I think we talked about that last time, no matter what kind of computer you have.
Yeah, I put it, John said to put it in Vista into XP mode, XP compatibility mode. And it runs better with that, but it's still kind of runs like crap. There's certain areas that the frame rate literally just goes to absolute hell. And it doesn't. And then other areas like the cemetery in Vizima, the actual city, the cemetery runs at like 60 frames per second, no problem. But then, like any town area, it must have
anywhere where you engage in combat, which is timing based.
Yeah, and that's a little harsh, but
that was what got on my nerves, was that it sort of devolves into click, 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 potion, click, click, click. Oh, I used the wrong potion, click, click.
Well,
click.
that's the other thing. There's no potion, at least at this stage in the game, that gives you back life. So you have to take a potion that makes it so that you restore
slowly
life faster.
Regain life, yeah.
Right, and that is so obnoxious to be walking around. There's a couple environments that are absolutely huge. Like the swamp area is absolutely huge, and you're just hoofing it all over the place, getting quests done, and you're either just going to stand there and let your vitality regain, or go and find a fireplace and meditate for an hour or two just to regain your health. And it's tedious. And I think the thing to take away from The Witcher is that it was released in 2007, so we have to give it a little bit of a wide berth. I mean, it was doing things that now
if you think about and the engine it built it off of was not meant for that kind of game. It built it off the Aurora engine, the engine from Neverwinter Nights, and that was not meant for that kind of game.
Right. And I mean, they did so much with it. I think that I see so much of The Witcher's influence into a game like Dragon Age in terms of going around and interacting with the story, the way that multiple characters interact with different quests. It's not just you meet one quest giver and then you never talk to him ever again. That quest giver can interact with other events that are going on in the world. I really, really like that. I just think that Dragon Age is a much tighter, meaner game than The Witcher, and the combat is infinitely better in Dragon Age. But The Witcher does so many nice things that I think it's definitely worth picking up if you like a Western-style RPG. Just understand that this is not a game where the combat is the strong point. The combat is really just... It's not that great. It's a little boring. So
I think the fact that it came from the Polish developer has a lot to do with why it does some things different that a lot of other games don't.
Yeah, I forgot about Poland. There's some things that it does that are so bizarre, like having
you would never expect.
Yeah, like having to go and get a manual on like a certain monster's anatomy so that I can take off his skull or like cut out his tongue and whatnot. Like, really? Like, it's so tedious. Like there's just at the very beginning of the game, like every quest revolves around like knowing a certain aspect of a monster in order to skin it properly, and it's just, oh my god, it was driving me nuts. Like I'm looking at every FAQ online. Where do I find this book so that I know how to skin this monster? Oh god, I don't have any healing potions. All right, so what fruits and berries do I have to pick in order to do this? Like that's what I mean by this is not a tight game. This is a game very much based around immersion, which is great, but at certain times it kind of becomes a little mundane and a little irritating.
I agree.
So, but
I think overall it's very good, and I think they'll definitely improve on it.
Yeah, and the story is very interesting. I will say though that the scripting, it sounds like I'm really being negative on this game, so I just want to preface again. I really, really like The Witcher. I think it's a good game, but
I think because aspects of it are so good, the stuff that isn't good sticks out worse.
Right. One of the worst things is that in the second chapter, the quest design really opens up, and you can kind of follow down two different branches of the same story, and you have to complete both branches, and they both meet up again. But the second branch that I took, or it's probably the second branch that you should take, it doesn't really give you any of the story background. You're just doing things, and it seems like you really don't know why you're doing them. You don't know why certain characters are suspicious. You're trying to figure out this like grand conspiracy going around, and you don't understand why everybody's suspicious. And then you go down the other branching storyline. It's like, oh, that's why that person was suspicious, or oh, that's why we think that person's evil, and those kind of things. It made the story very confusing. Not only that, also the fact that they reuse so many character models. So I'm like, wait, is this guy supposed to be the village guard now, or is this guy supposed to be Gramps, the cannibal that lives in the swamp? Like, what am I dealing with here? Like, it just, things like that make it really hard to keep the Witcher under control. But overall, it is a great game. I love the decisions. Steven, who did you side with on the issue of the small boy in Chapter 3? Did you side with Triss or with Shani?
With Triss.
I totally sided with Shani. I totally sided with Shani. I don't know. I got a thing for short redheads. I don't know, apparently.
I felt like Trish was the one they were kind of encouraging you to go with.
Yeah, I think I've made a really bad choice there, but you know what? I'm going to stick with it. I chose fruit. I'm going to live with fruit. So.
I think that's good, though. Like, that's kind of the thing they encourage in that game, too, is like, that whole there is no one right answer.
Yeah. The game did take a long time to get to those decisions, though. You really don't make your first real decision in the game until the end of Chapter 1, and I think Dragon Age does a better job of throwing those decisions at you fairly quickly, even just in the origin story. So even when you fire up a new game of Dragon Age, you're going to play it a completely different way, most likely, because you're going to try a different origin story. It's going to be so great when that's in Dragon Age 2, right, guys?
Oh, yeah, that's right. And hey, at least it looks like the combat isn't going to be like,
That's true. That's true.
And it looks like they're actually keeping it, like the other one.
And the system specs for Dragon Age 2 came out. I think that's the first game that I've seen that requires like 4 gigs of RAM that isn't like Crysis or Metro 2033. I was kind of surprised. Like the video requirements aren't that high. It's like 512 megabytes, but then I'm like, 4 gigs of RAM? Really? Huh. All right. Word. I think that's it for me, gentlemen. So how do we want to do this whole soundtrack discussion? Who wants to begin?
Pat.
I'll lead.
Not surprising.
Please lead.
All right, Pat, go for it.
So I've been the head of the RPGFan soundtracks review section for the better part of a decade, and I have written reviews for nearly 1,000 soundtracks now. For all the time that I've spent doing it, I think one of the most important things to remember is the short-sightedness or the short memories that we tend to have. There's a ton of great music written for video games, but it's hard to remember if you haven't listened to it in a while. So I think it would be best to talk about some really good game music that we've heard recently, either in the context of I've been playing the game or in the context of I've been listening to the soundtrack because the game's not out yet, or I have no interest in the game but I like the composer, etc. I know some people don't give a lick about game music, but there are others who get really into it for whatever reason, and I'm one of them.
I am as well.
Well,
Yes.
I think it's interesting for you to bring up the current music aspect, because I've noticed that as game music has become more and more orchestral, as it's become more and more like the movies, I don't find myself listening to it as much as I used to. Like, take, for example, I'm going to use a movie argument. Like, we all know the main theme to Pirates of the Caribbean, because that main theme is freaking awesome. Like, my alma mater, South Carolina, uses that during football games. And
That's freaking awesome, and you hear it 6 times
per 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, but it's just this awesome, like, it's got this, Indiana Jones style quality.
It gets you going.
Yeah, it gets you going. But I've noticed that game music, and game music kind of did that to an extent too, like, the Mega Man 2 soundtrack, or just about anything from Castlevania. But today's game music is getting more and more elaborate, so that it's hard to pick up on an actual melody. It's more fitting in with the action that's taking place on screen, and Final Fantasy 13 is a perfect example. But there's no melody that you can remember. Maybe that's just me. That's just me.
I agree to an extent. I was actually going to say, I think that there are kind of two ways of going about it. A lot of Western games and some Japanese games now, they kind of either go with the ambiance route, where it is like you said, where there's no melody. It's just sort of, it goes along with the action.
Right. The music is designed for the cues and the scenes of the game, and is not designed to be an outside listening experience, and it's very hard for it to be that.
Right.
Whereas on the other hand, you have a game like, we'll go with a soundtrack I really like, Birth by Sleep. That game has music that I think is great even outside of the context of the game, and it's very melody driven. And I mean,
Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep?
Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep.
Oh, I haven't heard it yet.
He just likes simple and clean. That's all he likes.
No, I don't care for those theme songs at all, actually, to be completely honest.
I like Passion. I think Passion's good.
Oh, yeah, Passion is pretty cool, yes.
I like both.
But, like, first of all, I'm a ridiculously big Shimomura fan, so there's that. But the character themes in that, I mean, I still remember all of them. I mean, you get Sora, Riku, Kairi, and then in the new game you have, Roxas's, Ventus's theme, Roxas's theme, and so on. And those are definitely very melody-driven. And, I mean, the degree to which that's evident, I think, is very well played in Birth by Sleep, because a lot of those characters have relationships with the characters from the previous games, and you can hear that in their character themes. And, the last boss, I can't spoil it, but, he has a lot of connections to previous, characters, and every single one of those characters he's connected to shows up in his theme music when you battle him, and
that's cool.
You can hear it. And I even wrote in my review, it was the first thing I wrote for the site.
That's called leitmotif, Liet. When you develop character themes and then you use them in the context of something other than that central character, but the point is to remind you of that character's existence as a theme. That is leitmotif. Now we have all learned something today.
Yeah,
and it is outstanding. I love it when they do that in games. I raved about it when I talked about the Last Ranker soundtrack, because they do a great job with that. I just think it's just such an outstanding thing to do, and it brings the whole experience together so much.
Yeah, real quick, reuse of a melody is a great way to help it stick with people. I thought it was interesting you brought up Final Fantasy 13. FF13 does have a lot of over-the-top dramatic stuff. Like, I always think of Ragnarok, that big vocal piece from the first disc of the soundtrack.
You mean 10? Or
no?
Oh, you're for whatever reason, I was thinking back to 10. No, you're right. Sorry.
Oh yeah, 10. Yeah, 10 doesn't have a lot of repeated themes, does it? It has at Xanarkand, everyone knows that piano piece.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
That's a good one. I really.
That's probably the one that sticks with people most.
It's beautiful.
Secondarily is probably the vocal theme Suteki Dane, which that's it. Some people don't like it, and that's fine. I think the orchestral version used in the end credits is nice. No, you're right. 10 was a little lacking. I think having three composers was sort of and who they were, they didn't exactly mesh. Though I do like the soundtrack. You're right. There wasn't a lot of strength there. I wrote an editorial a few years back that talked about how the expansion of technology has made it harder for us to have melody-driven music in video games. When you only have 3 channels on some 8-bit hardware-based synth, which we know as chiptunes, there's not a lot to work with in terms of auxiliary decoration. You have the melody and a bass line and something else. Mm-hmm. Those are your 3 channels, and that to compensate, you had to come up with really awesome melodies, or else no one was going to care. And the early Dragon Quest titles and early Final Fantasy titles,
the Moon from DuckTales.
Or the
man,
there are
that's a good one.
there are tons of NES games where you remember the themes, and part of it is because yes, it was 2 minutes of music that you heard looped for an hour at a time. That certainly helps you remember. But the same is true if you're playing World of Warcraft and that background soundtrack is on and you're in the same zone grinding for 2 hours and it's that same music playing during the entire grind. You might not remember that melody because it was designed to be ambience, and it doesn't have a strong melody.
That's a really good point. Like the music from Diablo 2, my buddies and I, when we would play D&D together, we would use the Diablo 2 music for ambient music. I literally couldn't hum anything from Diablo 2 except for maybe like the Rogue's Encampment, just because that's like what you always remember from your beginning playing. But that music did a great job of just adding a layer of sound to the experience without it being overbearing. It's not like when you hear Metal Man's music in Mega Man 2, and which just overwhelms in such a positive way, or Wily's Stage 1 music, which is
that's like
fantastic.
The pinnacle right there. Yeah.
Right.
So with all of that out of the way, and I think it's important that anyone listening to this podcast or considering the topic, those are all things you need to keep in the back of your mind whenever you talk about or think about or listen to video game music. I just wanted to ask everyone on here, what's some really good stuff you've been hearing lately, and what in your mind makes it good? I'd like to start with Steven, because I know there are some things he'd like to talk about.
Well, lately, I've actually been listening to quite a bit, but I was going to say maybe we can check with Derek and Dennis and see what they think real quick. So that
sure.
Get a little word in.
Yeah. Let them get in first, and then we'll talk about the stuff that we've been liking lately.
Because I could definitely talk all freaking day about that. So,
all right. Dennis, what have you been hearing that in your mind is good music? And I know Dennis, you go everywhere and listen to everything. So even if it's old, that's fine. Just what have you been listening to recently?
Yeah. Well, recently, thanks to Steven, he got me into listening to Radiant Historia, very soundtrack. And again, Third Birthday, also both Shimamura related stuff. And in general, you don't mind me guys just speaking my mind about the video game music in general?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, like what you guys said, I'm a melody-driven kind of guy. It's like, I understand with ambiance, it works with the scenes since the immersion for the games, but I find that stuff boring, and it's just been, with modern game music being that way, more and more orchestral, like you guys said, just barely anything stands out to me, and nowadays the only composers or bands or whatever that I seem to just look forward to nowadays come from this Falcom Sound Team, aka the East guys, and whatever Meguro does, because they've been constantly pumping out catchy melodies, and they're quite versatile, things like that. And I understand that ultimately, you make the music to fit with the game. That's obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it works because that's the composer's probably first concern, make it work with the game. But if it's really good, it should go above and beyond it and just have an outside influence and make it worth listening to and remember outside the game. Something I call iPod worthy.
Mm-hmm. And see, I find very little video game music to be iPod worthy. Like picking up, I own the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, and that's one of those like giant mistakes that I made. Because I'm sorry, and every time Bumblebee in or whatever the hell that thing comes into my like CD player, I want to throw something.
You mean the song from Phantasy VII? Boop,
Oh God!
That song is over 10 years old, and we remember it. It has succeeded.
Yeah, because you're stuck in the Honeybee Inn for like 3 hours.
Yeah, looking at like dudes like getting their thing on or whatever, and poo I mean sir, which still makes no sense to me.
And one more thing, like I said, it's been harder for me to get swayed by more modern soundtracks, but there's still occasional surprises. Mm-hmm. Like for one instance with Nier.
Yeah, Nier.
Yeah, sorry, just adjusting the volume. Yeah, with Nier is like, okay, it's very atmospheric because it sets the tone of the game. But there's also a powerful melody substance that just makes me remember, and it just feels very enchanting. That's what makes it work. And I'm not even a big fan of vocals.
I'm not normally either, and I think Nier was just amazing in that regard. And I haven't played the game, and I want to just because of how good the soundtrack is.
Yeah,
That's how I got in the game.
A lot of that is owed to the vocalist. Her name is Emmy Evans, and I think she's been trying to get a break in Japan for a while. She's half Japanese, and she'd been doing some small game music projects, and they took her in. She was allowed to write the pseudo lyrics. You know, they used some made-up languages for a lot of those songs in Nier, and she had a lot of control over what she did with the vocals. And the 4 versions of Song of the Ancients and the song Grandma.
Great song.
There's just and the Kaine and Emil tracks.
My favorite was Wretched Automations. You know, the Junkie
Wretched Automatons.
I love that song.
There's an a cappella version of that on the Arrange album. So if the industrial techno stuff isn't your thing and you just want to get down to the vocals, that they cut that out and just left the vocals as a track on the Arranged album, which is hilarious. But it sounds beautiful.
Honestly, I kind of like both together. It's like one there's
I like the techno stuff, so it's fine. But
it's like without one or the other didn't work with me as much, but still good stuff.
So I just want to make sure we keep moving so the show doesn't go too long. Do we maybe without if Dennis, you got anything to add, that's great. But maybe we should move on to Derek, just to kind of keep things moving a little bit.
Agreed. That's fine. I agreed for Dennis.
Derek.
So there's interestingly, I have something to add on both of those topics, and I'll start by talking about Nier since we're already on that. It's a game that I had picked up around the time it came out. I rented it, and I wasn't terribly impressed by it. I only played up until the part where you go fishing, which everybody knows is terrible and not explained at all.
Should have not put it in the game.
Yeah, and I enjoyed the music a lot, and I was hearing people rave about it, and I had downloaded the soundtrack. I had purchased the soundtrack legally with money.
I'm going to punch you.
Well played.
I actually
so I've been listening to that
soundtrack illegally.
Yeah, I should. And I mean, I did. Anyway, moving on. There was. I
made a picture of it.
It's interesting that a game, for once, I try not to listen to soundtracks before I play the game because I want to associate the music that I'm hearing with the events that I see in the game because I think that it creates more powerful emotion. And
I know that all too well.
You can remember it more vividly when you have those two things together, which is not necessarily always the case, but that's just the way that I like to do it. But for once, I had heard so much raving about the soundtrack that I just gave it a try, and I found myself liking it so much that I had to get the game. And I gave it another shot despite not really liking it at first, and I recently played through and beat it, and I loved it. And the story especially was amazing, completely leaps and bounds above so many things that came out this generation. But I just think I was so impressed by the fact that the music was powerful enough to make me give the game another try because I wanted to experience that in the context of the game. And so the other thing that I was going to mention was you were talking about sort of melodies versus ambient music. And something that I had been listening to recently is I had found the Secret of Evermore soundtrack, and I was listening to that, and I noticed that because Secret of Evermore was like a Western approach or a Western attempt to kind of recreate Secret of Mana, and I was listening to it, and I just noticed how much of the music was sort of background noise, like crickets chirping and the swamp bubbles popping and that kind of stuff. And then the Secret of Mana soundtrack, on the other hand, is all these melodies that I remember so vividly and distinctly. And that's a really good example of the difference between sort of like the Western and Eastern aesthetics in music.
You know what's interesting about you bringing that up? Do you know who wrote the music for Secret of Evermore?
I should. I remember reading about it, but I don't remember.
He's a pretty important guy. His name is Jeremy Soule, and he's also worked on Morrowind and Oblivion and all sorts of Western RPGs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he did.
It was his first game soundtrack, and he got the deal with Square. We actually have an interview with him on the site. I think it's about a year old, and we discussed Secret of Evermore, and I begged him to try and find a way to reprint the soundtrack, and basically it's one of these things where Square said, well, we'll do it if you let us sell it, and you get a little bit of royalties. And he says, well, if we reprint it, I want to reprint it on my label, and that's never going to happen. So we're never going to get a reprint of that soundtrack. But
shame.
Soul did the main theme to Morrowind is quite memorable.
Iconic.
Yeah, you don't forget that. So he is capable of it. Also, bringing up Secret of Mana, in a week, I will be meeting Hiroki Kikuta, who wrote the Secret of Mana soundtrack. I've been listening to like his entire body of work before I go to meet with him. I'm doing an interview with him for another website. But
that is awesome.
I'm taking the Secret of Mana soundtrack with me for him to sign it.
Oh,
and,
cool.
It's in DC, right?
Yeah, MagFest in Washington D.C. And he he did that, and he did the Japanese only sequel. He disappeared from the game music scene for years and years, and he's starting to come back slowly. The biggest project he's done in a while it's coming out in Japan soon. It's called Shining Hearts, part of the Let's Ruin Sega's franchises series. I'm praying that Shining Hearts will actually be good, but even if it isn't, the music samples that you can hear on the website, it's clear that Kikuta is back, and it's more of his style. He definitely has a signature style. Lots of xylophone and marimba and more ethnic style music. One of his best soundtracks is a PlayStation 1 soundtrack for a game called Sokaigi, and if you ever get to hear that, it's just brilliant.
The soundtrack from Seiken Densetsu 3 was amazing too. That was another game with great character themes.
Yeah, that's a game that desperately needs to come to America somehow, some way, because it's just Secret of Mana, but larger and better,
and multiplayer.
No, Secret of Mana. The first Secret of Mana was 3-player.
Oh, yeah, I've never actually played the first Secret of Mana. I've only played the sequel.
You young buck.
I could have played it. I just didn't.
Anyway, was there anything else you wanted to add, Derek?
Nope, that's all. I just wanted to bring up those two.
All right, Steven?
Oh.
Or Rob.
I'll bring up the rear. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You and that girl from Harvest Moon.
I was gonna say that brings me back to the Harvest Moon girl.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Go ahead, Steven.
All right. Well, lately I've been listening to the Third Birthday soundtrack because I'm in the process of reviewing it. And also a super, super, super late soundtrack, the European Kingdom Hearts soundtrack, which is, for all intents and purposes, the same, short of a few tracks. And for the Third Birthday, they had 3 composers do it. Shimomura comes back basically to cover a few of her old themes from the previous games. They get Tsuyoshi Sekito, who does a lot of remix work for Square Enix. He did a couple of tracks in Dissidia. He did a few tracks in, I believe, Crisis Core. And then
Suzuki did work on FF13.
Yes. Mitsudo Suzuki did FF13, and you can definitely tell there's a lot of similarities, I think, between parts of 13's soundtrack, Final Fantasy 13, and the Third Birthday. My only problem I have with the Third Birthday soundtrack is I think that in the beginning, it's great. It sets off such a great first impression, and you get remixes of the old themes from Parasite Eve. You get really great ambiance, but then for the next 50 tracks, you get really well-produced ambiance with no melody and nothing to hold it together. And after a while, for me, every track started to sound the same. They all sound good, and I think it's interesting that we were talking about ambiance versus melody-driven music. Because I think the Third Birthday is kind of in a weird middle ground because there are melodies, but most of them are melodies that are from like a 15-year-old game.
Right.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it. Yeah. What holds the soundtrack together is definitely Primal Eyes and various
the theme of Aya.
Yeah. Theme of Aya Bray. I mean, those are the key songs, and if they ever make any more games in the Parasite Eve franchise, those will continue to be the key songs. I don't think they'll ever make another strong melodic theme that will top those or that anyone would care about.
Yes.
It's very telling that the only other very melodic track is that weird track where some old guys sing Joy to the World.
You know what though? That's actually, if you listen to it, at first it's strange, but it's actually kind of endearing. It's sort of a charming song.
I like it.
Like I listened to it. I go, this actually isn't that bad. I would listen to this during Christmas. But I don't want to give a bad impression of the soundtrack. It's a very good soundtrack. I just think that it gets a little bit samey. What it does make me want really badly is a game where Mitsudo Suzuki does everything himself, and he doesn't have to sort of, pick up after someone else's character themes, where he can, set his own stuff, because I think that would be great. Because, you had a lot of really good stuff from him in Final Fantasy 13. And you had said, I think he did most of the actual performances in 13, and
no, what he did in 13 was synth operation and arrangement. So the composition is all Masashi Hamauzu, but Ryo Yamazaki and Mitsudo Suzuki help. The words I would use is they provided the soundscape. Hamauzu doesn't know a lot about electronic music. He's much more a piano and strings kind of guy, And so they needed a lot of electronic stuff for the setting, and Suzuki provided very well.
He definitely is more than capable of doing that, which is why I would love to see him do like some sort of sci-fi RPG. I mean, he'd be absolutely perfect for it, totally on his own, not having to work off somebody else, anyone else. While I'm on the subject of electronic soundtracks, I'm also another kind of middle ground game is Mass Effect 2. We didn't cover the soundtrack, I think, because it was download only, but that game has an outstanding soundtrack. There's a really great interview with the composers on ocremix.org, and basically they have character themes that are very long and they're worked into the character missions, and so that gives it a sense of cohesion, but you have that leitmotif. The Mass Effect 2 theme, I firmly believe in the future is going to be as iconic as the Metal Gear theme.
No, bull.
Because the Mass Effect 2 theme, that song starts up and is just, that song hits you. And the Suicide Mission theme, oh no, yes.
No, I'm sorry, dude. The trailer, the trailer for Metal Gear Solid 3, when that kicks into the Metal Gear
theme,
and he's coming out of the forest in the swamp, and the fire's burning behind him, and the choir, when that choir kicks in, that still sends a shiver down my spine.
Or during Metal Gear Saga, the track Metal Gear Saga and Metal Gear 4 is absolutely amazing.
No, see, I was ticked off that Konami backed out because there was all that controversy over whether or not the Metal Gear theme was stolen by that Russian composer, because they do sound remarkably alike. And so rather than sit there and create more of the controversy, they only used the theme at one point in the whole game. And it was like coming full circle, it was like the other two Pirates movies where they never played the complete Pirates theme, and I felt like something was missing. It would literally be without watching episode 5 and 6, Empire and Return of the Jedi, without the main Star Wars theme. It feels wrong. And I think that for them to not use it in Metal Gear Solid 4, and for them to not use the Pirates theme in the other two Pirates theme songs, they use everything except the chorus that everybody knows, except for the melody that everybody uses. They use all the stuff around it, but they never use that melody until the credits. And that's horrible.
I'm not a fan of that, no, but I think the fact it was in that one track, and that was the best track in the game.
I think the reuse of the song "Here's to You" was the best part of that whole soundtrack.
Well, we can establish one thing then: the Metal Gear series has great music.
Yes, it does. Yes, I disagree. I don't find the Mass Effect soundtrack to be very memorable. I like the action music, but I think everything else I find the music to be borderline obnoxious, actually. When you're on the frickin' elevator music when you're on the ship, the bum 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 bum, that just, I hate that music.
The galaxy map theme for the world map, the theme song during the end missions, I just think those are incredibly memorable songs. They got you juiced, and I remember the melody of those songs really well.
I think that the battle music, the I think that's a good theme, and that's the one that really kept me going. But the rest of the Mass Effect music I found fairly unmemorable. But maybe I'm just being harsh.
I will give it that. I think parts of the track, the album, weren't exactly memorable, but the character themes, and I think the book ending themes, the introduction and the entire end sequence music was outstanding.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take up too much time, but I also want to say, I came into the Radiant Historia soundtrack It's fully Yoko Shimomura, which, again, I'm a giant fan of her. I would gush about that if I could review it, but somebody already did, though they gushed about it, so it's okay. I think it's an outstanding soundtrack, and Shimomura calls on her various styles, and it comes out awesome. So if anybody is interested in great music, they need to hit Radiant Historia.
I've been playing so many Western RPGs lately, and I think that Western RPGs usually use ambient music more than melody-driven, theme-driven music. Some games definitely do. I think Mass Effect is an example of one. But I really couldn't hum any tune from The Witcher. I could hum maybe a couple battle themes from Dragon Age because they play the same battle, like they have the same 4 or 5 tracks in terms of battle music. So for the Western RPGs, the soundtracks that really stand out to me are the soundtracks to Persona 3 and Persona 4. I still think the battle theme in Persona 4 is – I understand why a lot of people find it to be obnoxious, but that is the best battle theme that I've heard.
I love Mass Destruction. That battle theme is amazing. Mass Destruction is incredible.
Are we talking 4 or 3? I'm talking 4.
I like 4s too.
Yeah, I like 4s more. I forget what it's called exactly. I'm sure.
Reach out to the truth.
Yeah, Reach Out to the Truth. I think 4's battle theme is the best in the past decade for me. It really gets me into the moment of the battle. I love to hear that tune. I think the boss music is great.
Yes.
For as much. Go ahead.
Shoji Meguro was a complete just beast. I love him. He's incredible. He has such a command of so many different styles, and
it's beautiful. Every
time he does one, he kicks its ass.
Yeah. The girl I was dating at the time, she really liked the 8-bit music in the dungeon that was kind of modeled after Dragon Quest. She really liked that music. And then even though I hate Final Fantasy 13, like absolutely despise it, I really like the battle theme in Final Fantasy 13. I think it takes a little too long to get started, like to reach where the strings actually come in and everybody knows that iconic string tune. But I think that that's a great theme song, and I really do like it. But in terms of overall video game soundtracks, I have to go outside of the RPG realm for the stuff that I really like. Obviously, I think the single greatest video game soundtrack of all time is Shadow of the Colossus. Like that music is absolutely stunning.
Amazing.
Good for you. That's a good choice.
I own it. And I listened to it all the way to college one time. Like I literally played the CD about 4 times, and
By the way, guys, just to make you jealous, Rob, I went to Video Games Live recently in Jersey. They played the main theme of Shadow of the Colossus live.
Well, I YouTubed that. So
is that that's
I heard it in person.
Ko Otani does that? Open way or whatever.
I've interviewed Ko Otani.
Oh my god, you're so lucky.
That music is just so like it. I don't know what it is, but it just hits me and it's haunting. I especially love the 15th Colossus music because it's only used for the 15th Colossus.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
The final battle one.
Yeah, the final battle one too. Those are just purely haunting. Like that they literally scare the crap out of me. The only thing I don't like about that soundtrack is that the actual music on the score is very short. Like they're only using like 2 minutes versions, whereas with most video game soundtracks they'll loop
the loop.
Yeah, and I like the loop because it gives you more of the music. You're not sitting there having to like restart it all the time. So that's my favorite like orchestral in your face soundtrack. The best ambient soundtrack I have ever heard in a video game is Red Dead Redemption. That music, you're sitting there going like, well, how are they going to make it sound like a Western? You know, when we're looking at the previews and everybody was sitting there going, you know, is it going to sound like a Western? You know, just like and like have these horrible sounds and just be really, you know, just crass. And they handled it with such grace that it stands out and it makes you feel like a cowboy. You feel the loneliness. You feel the difference between when you're in America and when you're in Mexico without it sounding, you know, like the Three Amigos soundtrack when you get into Mexico. You know, everything is just handled with care. And I think I missed the part where you get into Mexico and you jump on your horse because I jumped off my horse, so I got to miss the vocal track, but I went back and replayed the game just to experience that. That's the best use of ambient music I've ever heard in a video game. It sticks with you, but it never overpowers the situation. but it adds to that feeling of isolation as you're roaming through the prairie. So even though it's not an RPG, the Red Dead Redemption soundtrack is amazing, and Shadow of the Colossus hands down my favorite, except for maybe Dr. Wily's theme in Mega Man 2. That's
Heard it live also.
That's awesome.
Honestly, who wasn't playing Shadow of the Colossus for the first time? And you climb the top of the first Colossus, and the first time you stab him and it starts playing the open way, everybody fell in love with the game right there.
I also like when the second Colossus comes crashing through the wall and the music plays that played in like the first trailer. Oh God. Whew. I know what I'm listening to later on tonight. Okay.
Got you all worked up.
Got me all frisky over here. What? Okay. So, without further ado, Derek, let's do a quick news section. Let's see if you can get done all the news in 5 minutes.
Yo.
If you fail, you will be shot.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I'm going to make it pretty brief this time. The headline article that I wanted to mention was we had it featured on the site. It was about the upcoming release of Chantalise. It's the new game from Carpe Fulgur. It was also developed by Easy Game Station. It's the same company that made Reccetear, which was the other game.
It's the new old game.
Right, the new old game. They also translated Reccetear.
Am I now going to be a guy that sells skills rather than items?
No, it's not a shop sim. It's an action RPG similar to Threads of Fate.
Yep. And
really?
The reason they were able to do it is because Reccetear was such a success, mostly because of Steam sales, from what I read.
BioWare.
Sure. They didn't make as much as they could have, and they were, Andrew Dice seemed particularly kind of disappointed about it. But he said he was still really happy with the success. So since they ended up selling over 100,000 copies, which is incredible for such a small release by a company's first project. But they did a good job, and so hopefully they're going to be able to release up to 3 or 4 games this year. Yeah. The first of which is going to be Chantalise, which is the action RPG.
Yeah, hear that, BioWare? Steam is good for your sales. Don't kick it in the nuts.
Can I throw in a quick comment?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Chantalise is older than Reccetear in terms of its original development in Japan, and I'm really happy for Carpe Fulgur, but the only thing I can't help but wondering is. That company, Easy Game Station, I believe they've made 2 games since Reccetear, and instead of going forward with them, they're going backwards. So when they say they're going to release 4 in next year, I'm assuming the other 2 Easy Game Station games are coming, but I don't know that, and I'm just sort of surprised they didn't go after the newer stuff, because I've heard the newer stuff is really good.
Cool. We'll see when.
Well, we can hope. Maybe they're going to start with the older stuff and move to the new, which is what.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That makes chronological order and all that.
They must buy Chantalise so that way they have the money to do it.
Keep going, Derek.
So next up, lots of PlayStation Network releases of PS1 titles, which is really exciting. A lot of classic Square Enix, Squaresoft titles are coming, many of which people have been waiting for a long time.
Okay, let's get reaction. Let's get like one-word reaction or one-sentence reaction from everyone on these games.
All right. Well, not a Square Enix title, but one that just came out was Arthalad 3 on PSN.
Nice.
Yawn.
Which is good. They completed the trilogy finally.
The trilogy's over. Yay.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to find the complete box a little while ago, so I didn't bite those, but I probably should just to support them. Anyhow, okay, so Square Enix releases. First of all, Threads of Fate.
Yay!
Yawn.
Yay!
I think that's a good one. I like the main theme to that game, too.
Yawn.
Speaking of soundtrack.
Is it good enough to play?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Then Vagrant Story.
Woohoo! The game that is actually calculus. Excellent.
I'm really disappointed that I didn't play that one more when it came out. So I'm looking forward to it.
Did they cut out all the obnoxious block pushing puzzles in that game?
No, it's a straight port.
It's gonna be a port, yeah.
I remember I read one review of Vagrant Story back in the day that said that Vagrant Story is like an absolutely amazing 8 to 9 hour game that was stretched to 20 hours, and I agree with that. Like that game has a lot of padding that was unnecessary, but it is an awesome game.
Yep. So the next one after that is a personal favorite of mine, pretty controversial, but Legend of Mana I really enjoyed.
Whoa.
So that'll be coming out soon.
It's the only one I haven't played among these Square releases, and I can't wait to play it.
It's a fun
It's
game
not that
that has
great,
an
but the
amazing
soundtrack is good.
Yeah, great soundtrack, and it's gorgeous. And
Yeah,
then,
the art looks beautiful, yeah.
It is.
The art is outstanding.
I'm not big on the game.
The final Square Enix title coming, the one that everybody's been waiting for, Xenogears. Finally.
Are they going to finish it?
No, it's a port.
No. I'm talking about the second disc. Are they going to finish it?
Of course not.
God.
But Xenogears is finally coming, so nobody has to pay $100,000 on eBay. No exaggeration. That's how much I paid. Not really. You had
Yeah, I lost my copy of Xenogears.
I have a copy wrapped in shrink wrap.
Wow.
Send it to me.
I nailed mine to a cross next to a fuzzy.
That makes sense. That's intentionally ironic.
Yep.
Can I ask a quick question? When the hell is Chrono Cross coming out on the PlayStation Network? Because
it's
need to
interesting
explain.
they didn't put it out now because they could have completed the Summer of Adventure.
I know,
Everyone
right?
remembers Summer 2000. The Summer of Adventure campaign was Legend
I
of Mana
loved
Threads
that
of Fate
promotion.
and Chrono Cross.
And then,
Made me so happy.
and then November was Final Fantasy IX, one of my personal
Yep.
favorites.
And the February before that was Vagrant Story. So
Yeah.
They don't. To lead into what Pat is about to say, hopefully, they've still not made the Chrono Cross Arrange album. So instead, we are getting Pat.
yeah, a related news item to that to Xenogears coming out in America on PSN. In what seems like a completely random move, and no one knows if there is an ulterior motive or not. Like 13 years after the game comes out, there's an orchestral arrange album coming out for Xenogears. Just totally random. Mitsuda is doing it with the cooperation of Square Enix. It's coming out, I think, end of February. Should be coming to iTunes as well, so you can get it digitally. You don't have to import the CD. It's going to have like 15 or 16 tracks on it. A couple of them are piano solo, but most of it is full orchestra. I really love the older arranged album. It's this Celtic style one called Creed.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's one of my favorite albums of all time. So I don't know if this orchestral album will top it, but the mere fact that Xenogears is getting more attention has led to a lot of speculation of remakes or continuation of the series.
Never going to happen.
Knows?
Never going to
Saga 4.
Here's what's going to happen.
No.
Tetsuya Nomura is going to redesign Deus, and he's going to add some zippers. He's going to add 15 different sides of his heart. And then the fans are going to eat it up.
No, I don't think we're ever going to... I
don't think Nomura is allowed to touch Xenogears. That's just not okay.
I'm surprised Nomura hasn't been ordered to sit in a corner after the Final Fantasy debacles lately. If Versus 13 turns into a disaster, he's going to get a window seat.
Yeah, but then he started printing money with Kingdom Hearts. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. But no, I really don't expect to see the Xenogear, anything Xeno continue. With Xenosaga being such an unmitigated disaster, and even Xenogears, I mean, it's a half-finished game. It's an amazing first disc with a second disc of just like the frickin' cliff notes.
I was so bored of the gameplay. I was actually glad of the second disc. I was like, just give me the story and the music. I'm so tired of this game.
Yeah. No, the game does kind of pour it on. Oh, and I also love, endless sewers where everything looks exactly the same.
Mind if I say something, guys?
Sure.
This is my Xenogears story. It's like I managed to eventually finish it, but I don't know how, because sometime in the first half, back when I wasn't getting to sci-fi and stuff, I fell asleep on one of the long cutscenes in the beginning of the game. Yet I somehow made progress. I must have subconsciously pressed X in my sleep.
You know what? It's funny that you say that, because the same thing happened to me with Final Fantasy 13.
You pressed X to Jason.
Yeah. I just
Jason!
I
got to the next part.
I just kept playing. I just kept pressing auto battle, and it just worked. All right, what else?
Anyhow,
Derek,
moving on. Two more PSN releases: The Harvest Moon, Back to Nature, and Sayuki Journey West. The latter of which was a really interesting title that came out of nowhere for me. Something that I wouldn't have expected to be localized.
I remember that thing.
It was a tactical, Final Fantasy Tactics style strategy RPG based on the Chinese novel.
Cool.
Which was later, they made an anime based on that as well.
Rock, Dragon Ball Z. What? Yeah, that's old school. Yeah, take
song.
that. Any of my students who listen to this. Yeah.
Next thing I wanted to touch upon, since we're starting to run short on time, we did do a feature. We called it Further Exploration on the site. We were talking about dream sequels to games that we were hoping to see, and not necessarily direct sequels like Final Fantasy X-2 kind of things, but just RPGs that we thought deserved to be revisited in some way. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely go head to this main site. It should be featured on the right side right now by the time the podcast goes up. After that, Torchlight is heading to Xbox Live Arcade.
As an exclusive.
A lot of people really enjoyed that last year. I myself have not played too much of it, but I think it's awesome that it's going to get some more exposure. So that's going to be on Xbox Live Arcade sometime I might have said next year, but at this point, this year, 2011, with a revamped control scheme. And I don't know if they're going to add anything more.
Well, that'll keep you busy until Diablo 3 comes out.
Yep. And the final thing that I wanted to mention today was the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim was announced a little while ago, and Rob was expressing his excitement at the battle system changes.
You mean the fact that I'm still going to be jumping up and down like a bunny rabbit in the forest in order to make my agility score higher?
You're just mad because you do that in real life, and you don't want to do it in a game, too.
That's true. That's true. I do prance wherever I go.
For people that don't actually know, they basically announced that they're going to be, to some extent, getting rid of the level scaling.
Which is good.
It will be more like it is in Fallout, where they sort of scale with you, but not to the extent where, you can get killed by like a bunny rabbit at the end of the game when you're, firing meteors at people. And they've said that the leveling system is no longer going to pinhole you into a class. You'll level up what you use, and that will define you as a class.
Yeah, and see, I'm telling you, that to me just screams like running through the forest, jumping up and down, and then, I don't know, the two biggest complaints lodged at Oblivion, and it seems like they're kind of fixing one, which is good, and then the other one they're kind of like, that's Elder Scrolls, deal with it. I mean, am I being too harsh?
I think they'll take into consideration that, raising agility requires you to run in circles and jump and swim. I think they'll probably come up with some sort of like alternative system of actions or some kind of a special attack you can do, or, you fight with an agility-based weapon or something,
I mean, the game looks gorgeous. I mean, those screenshots look really, really good.
There are screenshots? What?
Yeah. Oh, God, those Game Informer scans are out there. They're easy to find.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Game Informer.
Yeah.
Find them on NeoGAF, or maybe we'll post them up on the site. Anyhow, that's the end of the news that I've got for this week, so look forward to more.
All right. Well, I guess we're done. So, again, as Derek was saying, be sure to check out the further exploration thread. A lot of hard work went into that. We got a lot of great articles, a lot of things that we maybe want to see at some point. We should have our Game of the Year stuff up pretty soon, right, Pat?
January.
Yeah, I actually did some of the write-ups while we were recording this podcast. I'm hoping, in a couple days, maybe a little bit after this podcast.
Yeah, I feel bad because I didn't really contribute too much to that, but I just noticed that everything kind of derailed into like absolute yelling and screaming at each other. So I was just like, I'm out. I'm like,
That's
I'm
what
out.
we do best. It's
what
I do best.
Well, the problem is that I can yell and scream louder than anyone else, and I just choose not to. So.
Ironic.
Yep. Only on the podcast. So we'll have that up for you guys to read. Should be coming back with the regular crew. We got lots of games to talk about. There will be Ghost Trick to talk about in the near future. Hopefully I'll finish The Witcher at some point. Steven will play something with Kingdom Hearts, some sort of fan fiction involving Mickey making out with a real person. I don't know. And then
Quiet you.
You know it's true, man. You know it's true. I only speak the truth.
Yeah, but it'll have great gameplay.
Really? We're going to sit here and say that Kingdom Hearts has great gameplay as I press X to just kill things?
You haven't played Birth by Sleep.
Oh, I love this argument, Whatever.
Or Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, no, I played all the way through Kingdom Hearts 2 twice.
Sure you did.
I did.
I didn't see it.
Okay, I can get visual confirmation.
That sounds odd.
Let's not do this.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to the show. For Derek, for Steven, for Patrick, and for Dennis, thanks again, and we'll see you all eventually.